Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Lies We Left podcast. We're so glad that you're here listening with us today. Today, we're going to be talking about Rachel and her story. But before we do that, we want to give a quick disclaimer that we are not professionals and that this podcast may be triggering. So just please keep that in mind when listening. Rachel, take it away. Where do you want to start?
Hi there. Want to start out by giving the reasons why I'm telling my story. I'm telling my story primarily to bring awareness to child abuse, and maybe give hope for people that are trying to deal with past trauma and trying to move forward in a more healthy and productive way. People that are trying to heal. That's the reason why I'm telling my story. So, like I said, or like Ashley, did you say something about me I'm the second born in our family. Brooke is my older sister by 2 years. Things kind of had a tumultuous start. Not really, but in a sort of funny way. When they brought me home from the hospital, Brooke, I guess, felt threatened immediately and decided to bite my toes.
I'm so sorry for that. I still feel bad.
And that kind of started us off. No, Brooke probably got the worst of that experience instead of me. I'm sure mom and dad beat her brains out after that. So I'm sorry about that. But, yeah.
Were you bleeding?
I have no idea.
Uh-oh.
I don't remember
I was
doing it.
Kind of a newborn, so I don't remember that part. Yeah, from a very early age, I knew and was very aware of the fact that I was not part of a happy home. Not a happy home at all. I knew that, and it was never said directly. It didn't have to be said. It was just, you could feel it and you could sense it. And from a very early age, I was able to see that I wasn't part of a happy home. And that two things that really stick out to me is one of my mom being incredibly sad and depressed about her life, and dad being incredibly angry about his life. They were both dreadfully unhappy with their lives. And that was pretty evident from early on. And it only turned on to us as kids as a rejection, this kind of constant knowing every single day that you're alive, that your presence is resented, and the fact that people have to take care of you being a child and having needs, all of those things contribute to their animosity towards you on a daily basis. It came out in direct ways, such as physical abuse, mental abuse, and that kind of trauma was very much understood and realized from a very early age.
What kind of physical abuse are you talking about?
Being hit, being slapped, spanked, all of those things done in anger, being called names.
So you were hit, like, or slapped?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
On your face?
Yes.
Oh.
I have scars on my body, and I don't know where they came from. I think that's just my mind blocking a lot of that out.
See, I don't remember.
I did not know that, Rachel. I am so sorry.
Oh, well,
or anything like that. What age did it stop? What age did it stop?
Honestly, I think it stopped when. I think the majority of it stopped, honestly, when you were born, Aaron. I think a lot of it was halted because I think there was a definite event that happened that made Dad realize that it may not be the safest situation to leave us kids in the presence of Mom, or whatever you call presence when you're sleeping all day. Sorry. Sorry, that's the only way I know how to put it. But
So who disciplined you more during that time?
ooh, I don't know. I don't know. I just remember that because it was both. It was very much dad and mom.
It's so hard for me to see that going back in time because you were so quiet. You were always in a book, hiding in your favorite space, your closet.
That was my response. That was my response to their rejection and their animosity. Was I very, very much tried to become as invisible as possible. And just, I did. We had this really big walk-in closet, Brooke and I did. And I very much remember, having that as my kind of safe haven, my refuge, my panic room, whatever you want to call it. But I remember going in that room and just trying to stay in that room as long as possible. Because when I went out, scary things happened. Brooke and I were very different in how we dealt with that trauma. But in answer to your question, Aaron, I think a lot of that abuse subsided when you were born because more people started coming in. But up until that point, we had people live with us. Once you were born, we had people living with us that kind of helped out more, helped kind of conceal the fact, that mom, was using and
Are you saying those people helped conceal it, or like she concealed it?
I think no, they helped our family. They helped our family, and so in that, kind of in an inadvertent way protected us against mom and stuff like that. And I'm very grateful for that because that means that, Aaron didn't experience those things. And hopefully my other sisters didn't experience the level of trauma and everything. But anyway, back to the closet. I just remember spending as much of my time there as possible because that was my response to the trauma, the rejection, the animosity of having parents that did not want children.
So like when you were called out from that closet, like, do you remember feeling anything? Like, were you scared anytime you would like be called out, or?
Yeah, there was always attention that would produce. My stomach would get sick. I'd get tense. And it's funny because that was my reaction to it. And Brooke's reaction was very different. Brooke was, I think you had a different reaction because you needed attention and you were okay. You would kind of throw yourself out there. You were okay with, the friction that would happen from negative interactions with mom and dad.
Yeah.
Whereas I was not cool with that.
It was negative attention for me, and it was still
so
attention.
You were okay
Yeah.
with going out and, demanding more things from mom and dad, even though you probably paid more for it. I wasn't that person. I was like, okay, you obviously don't want me here. Peace. I'm out. I'm going to go to my closet and just try to spend as much time there as possible because that's where it was safe. Something that one good thing about that closet was there was a vast array of books. And I'd have my flashlight. I had a little sleeping bag and a pillow, and I would just read for hours and hours. I read from an early age, and just fell in love with learning and with reading and finding out about things. It kind of triggered a very curious mindset with me.
So I think even though, because I know at the beginning of this episode you were saying that even though like you didn't experience some of the same things like sex abuse from Cindy, it's just interesting because even though that didn't happen to you, you still have something that's very sad, which is going into a closet and literally feeling like that's your safe place as a kid. And it's just like today kids go and they read books because they can, and, they read in whatever space they can. But for you, you read, and I'm being all long-winded here, but my point is that was your safe place. It's just really sad, like, when you think about that.
I mean, it is, but I'm thankful that I had enough, I don't know what the term would be, wherewithal to realize. And I'm thankful. I can look back at it now, thanks to therapy, multiple therapists, medications, a lot of different other reasons. I can look at it, now and be like, there was something good that came from that. Yeah, there was something good that came from that, because I came out, not out of the closet, but I came out, a person that loved to learn and loved to experience new things and try new things, and just that in a very, very small, condensed way, that was my way of finding out about the outside world, because I didn't know how to connect. People just really confused me. The group that we were with, what do you guys call it, a church? I would see families at that church, and I would see dads with their daughters, and it would just baffle me that, some of the dads, just adored their daughters. The moms were there. The moms were present. Dad would watch, Jim Bob would watch his little daughter Susie, do a twirl and clap and say, "Oh, you did that well." And that just kind of just made me very puzzled, and just why are they treating their kids that way? And why doesn't mom and dad love me? Why don't they, what are these kids doing to their parents to make them like them so much? That kind of a thing.
I just thought everyone was fake. Like, everybody led double lives. I was like, okay, everybody puts on a facade.
Yeah.
And things change when you go home.
But the thing is, those, and I was terrified of adults. Adults scared me so bad because of mom and dad. So when I would see these adults acting this way, it really confused me and threw me for a loop, because I knew that those kids' reality was very different from mine. And that's from a very early age, like 4 or 5 years old, understanding that other people have a relationship with their parents that I didn't understand at all.
I was just confused by adults. I was like, I want your attention, but please don't hug me. Don't make me hug you. I don't want to hug you, but I want your attention. Like, it just so confused me.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a hard time.
Yeah.
It was a hard time to grow up. Growing up, it just kind of continued. The physical trauma and abuse stopped a little bit after Aaron was born. Because like I said earlier, we had people moving in, and we had people living with us that kind of helped neutralize the neutralize a little bit of the trauma and help with the kids and everything. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that we had that happen in our lives, because that was, I mean, God only knows what it could have ended up being and turned out.
I always felt safe with those 2 women who lived with us. I will always be thankful. I still look back and I adore those women. Mm-hmm. They wanted to know what we had to say.
Yeah.
They would just sit there. Come here, you can sit with me while I put my makeup on. I mean, it was just so opposite what we had. Mm-hmm. I will always treasure those memories.
Yeah. Another thing that I think was particularly detrimental to me and growing up was just refusing to allow me to be educated. And all of us, I think that was really detrimental to all of us, because it protected us from the outside. And it was used in terms of education is worldly. Education is, you need to be in the world but not of it, kind of a thing. I think that was really detrimental to us because I think teachers might have seen what was going on and tried to help. But just not having an education, not getting help with education didn't prepare me to conduct myself in the world, like a normal functioning human being. And any dreams that you had, regarding education, they were shot down very quickly. I remember saying when I was like 14 or 15, I had read A Civil Action, which is about a book about a lawyer. And I mentioned that I might want to go to law school. And I remember Dad snorting and just saying that I needed to look at trade schools instead. Yeah, stuff like that.
Which there's nothing wrong with trade schools, but
No.
in this instance, what he was
No.
saying was an insult.
Yeah,
No,
he was
and-
saying I was too dumb to go to law school, essentially.
And I would like the listeners to know Rachel is one of the most intelligent women I've ever met in my life. When Cindy was teaching me how to read, Rachel was there quietly observing. And as I'm putting the words together, there goes Rachel reading full-on sentences. And she exemplified this intelligence. I can't even put it into words. She's always been very observant. All of us are observant, but Rachel just, you could have been a lawyer. And I'm shocked that any parent would say that. I'm so sorry that happened.
Ugh, yeah. Like I think of,
Because you do. You're quick. Your wit is quick. Your comebacks are quick. And I could have seen you in a court of law. Most definitely.
well, yeah. Yeah, it was,
Well, if you still want to, you can, but you don't want to, right?
no, I have
Okay,
a different,
so
I have a
there's that.
different direction now. Yeah. But, I think me seeing legal justice in that book was what made me have the idea that maybe I could be a lawyer, that kind of a thing. But the lack of education was really harmful to me because it didn't, parents are supposed to give hope to their kids about their future.
Yeah.
And with our family, it was kind of just, I don't know, it's like we were always just living, hoping, and this is more Dad's attitude than Mom, but just like you're living, hoping for the rapture. Like you're living because you need to exist long enough for the end of the world to happen. Yeah. And I don't know, the rapture is something that some believers believe in, where God takes believers up to heaven and then a 7-year tribulation starts. And I don't know, it's like that's what Dad was waiting on all the time, which to me is just a spiritual way of saying that you're suicidal.
Rachel. Oh my gosh.
Well, no, seriously.
No, you're right though, because I feel like Dad interacted with us as if like we were constantly in the end times.
Yes.
And so there were no, and you have to wonder if that has to do with like the lack of hopes and dreams and ambitions that were like for you, for example, that were put on you, or not put on you. I mean,
In hindsight, Dad had absolutely no confidence in his abilities, and
He's very,
had
very fearful.
very, very fearful, very depressed, very anxious, and had no hope in his future.
Yeah.
So why would you have hope in your children's future? And I think he very much carried that on.
And yet, during football season, he could definitely count on every
Good
football
grief.
game.
Good grief. I know. Yeah,
true.
it is true. It is true.
This one thing we can count on.
Football.
Yeah.
a quick side note, I remember when Obama
Oh,
was
sweet
running.
Lord.
Dad, I kid you not, he said to me one day, he was like, if Obama gets elected, we are closer to the end times than you believe.
Yes.
I thought we were going to keep our podcast non-political.
No, it was
we are
just-
all
no,
over
no.
the place politically, people, and you don't even want to know what our podcast would sound like.
It's just, Dad was just so fearful to, anyway.
For whatever reason, that made him more fearful. I don't know.
Everything made him want to move to Montana. Everything. Yes. But that's what I mean. He was spiritually suicidal. He was always
There was no hope.
there
You're
was
right.
no
You're
hope. He was
absolutely
always wanting to
That's a T-shirt for you. Spiritually suicidal. How are you doing? Oh, I'm just spiritually suicidal.
but that's what it was. And now I married the most amazing guy. He's so positive, and he's so positive about everything. And when I would tell him things like this, he would look at me like I was a Martian, and he would start laughing hysterically and just be like, that is so not normal.
So I got kicked out at 19. Did you leave? Like what? How old were you? When did you leave? What caused that?
I left as soon as I possibly can.
What age? Do you remember?
Very bitter, very angry woman who didn't understand how to function in the world and knew that she wasn't worth very much because she was a woman. And her dad told her that she wasn't worth as much because she was a woman. He literally told her every job that a woman has is one less job for a man. Very sexist. Very, very sexist. I left, I think I was 19 or 20, leaving as soon as I can, not understanding how to function in the world, how to do life, how to go about life. I wasn't educated. Just felt very ill prepared, and ill equipped to function in the world. It was really sad.
And from the outside looking in, you had the most going for you. You looked like you held your own. You didn't take crap from anyone. You held a position in the medical field, and you were professional. Like out of when you told me years ago that you had started therapy, I was like, well, God, why? Rachel's perfect. I was like, well, if she's perfect and she needs therapy, God, what must I need?
I had a lot of walls built up that people weren't going to get through. Even God to a certain extent. People weren't going to get to me because of the walls that I had built up. And I was going to protect myself at all costs because of those walls. I was very fearful of God, because that's what we were trained to be. That's another thing that I want to point out that's really detrimental is, growing up in a church that teaches you to fear God. And I'm sure that there are parents in that church that taught their kids the fear of God as well as the love of God. But when you were growing up with what we were growing up with, you can't teach a terrified, traumatized child to fear God without teaching them the love of God.
Absolutely.
I don't understand that statement, the fear of God.
Yeah.
I just don't.
I think
don't
it's
know.
taken out of context.
Well, I just don't
Could
believe
be.
it.
Could be.
I just don't agree with that statement.
Yeah.
The fear of God.
I thought that it meant
what?
Respect.
Okay, then
yeah.
just say respect. You don't have to say fear. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. I've never liked that statement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, why? What's the point?
Yeah.
Like, just read the Bible and you'll figure out that there's something to be feared, I guess. But
But it all starts with love. And if you don't understand God's love, and if you don't understand it from the point of a traumatized child and you never understand the love of God, that creates a deeply confused individual and a deeply, I don't know, just like
Well, you're walking on eggshells with God.
you're scared. You're just
I'm
conducting
supposed to
yourself
love
through
you,
life.
supposed to fear you.
Yeah, you're waiting to be struck by lightning at
Yeah.
any moment.
No, I get
that. And that's again where more walls come up, which is why I gave the persona of being strong-willed, strong-minded, speaking my mind. Now I do it because I'm naturally a strong-willed person, but then it was all because I was trying to protect myself, and I was in a sense I was carrying that closet around with me.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't going to come out of the closet, that kind of a thing.
So you moved out. You're working. What happens next?
Depression, more anxiety, because I'm daily faced with the reality that I'm kind of conducting myself in the world like Kimmy Schmidt. I know I've referenced that before, but that's how I feel. Like I'm looking for that generator to start cranking and turning at any moment. I'm looking for that generator to turn, and I'm seeing people look at me like, what is wrong with you? Why are you laughing at that? Or why is that funny to you? Or why are you telling us this about your life and you're grinning while you're saying it or laughing while you're saying it? It's, it made for a very bitter, angry, confused person. I tried, I tried for about a 3-week period to end my life in a very specific way. And for those 3 weeks, I very much, every time I would do that dangerous habit or that dangerous thing, I would pray every single time to just for God to let me die, because I was that depressed and angry with how my life was going. And, I started kind of after that 3-week period where I didn't die, even though I wanted to, I realized that I had to make changes that were positive. So I started slowly trying to get back to some semblance of spirituality, thinking that would help. And it did help a little, but still I'm from the mindset of a completely broken person who's trying to realign herself, but she doesn't even understand how deeply broken she is and how deeply messed up she is. And then things change a little bit for the better, and then kind of met a guy who did change everything.
Who your sister introduced you to.
Yes. Yes. Brooke drug me to church one night, and I met Terry and fell head over heels in love with him. He was absolutely everything that I needed and still need to this very day. He was very different, and I liked the difference, but I didn't understand the difference at the same time. Like I kept not thinking. We would talk on the phone, and I would be like, this guy just is not real. This guy isn't real. He's putting on an act. And eventually he's going to show his real true colors, and he'll end up being gruff or abusive, or he'll say things that are rude. And it never happened. And it never happened, even though I kept expecting it to happen. And I kept seeing, this. I kept expecting for a side to come out and for him to end up being essentially like my dad, because until that point, the only guys that I was attracted to before them were abusive, angry guys that were like dad. And Terry was so different from all of that. And I still didn't really buy his quote unquote act. I thought it was, when are you going to show your real side to me and show me how you really are? And then I met his parents, and I thought, okay, this might actually be legit. He might actually be this way in real life, because I saw Terry's father and how Terry's father interacted with Terry's mother, and he absolutely adores his wife. Terry's dad does. He treats her like an absolute princess. And the first time that I met them, it was like, oh, this is how they really act. And then that got me even more curious. And so in our dating period, like I would come over for Sunday dinner, something that was completely foreign to me, dinner together on a Sunday.
Until I got kicked out of my parents' house, I did not know that there was a purpose for the dining room table other than Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. And I remember you telling me they eat dinner together every night.
Yep.
And after dinner, we talk for hours. And I was like, huh, okay.
I didn't know what to do, but just the most amazing people ever. I absolutely adore my mother-in-law and my father-in-law. They saved me in so many ways. It's unreal. That first dinner that I came over to, we sat down, we ate dinner, and we just talked. And they wanted to know about my life, what I was doing that week. They talked about what they had planned that week, and just mind-blowing kind of connection. And it kind of got me kind of thinking, well, if they do it this way, maybe I can live my life a little bit differently than what was presented to me. And maybe this is something that's real, even though it seemed too good to be true. I don't know. It seemed like a little bit almost like something out of, maybe almost Leave It to Beaver, but in a good way, because it was showing me what a family was. And I met Terry's extended family, and that just, it blew me away even more, because they're a clan. They're a clan, and they love each other, and they spend as much time together. That's what they value. That's what this group of people values, is time together and that kind of connection. And I had never experienced that. I'd never been told that I was worth that. And that's all they want. That's all that they want from you, is that kind of connection. Deeply humbling and moving to my life. Like, I can't even go into how much my in-laws saved my life by raising such a good son who treats me like a princess, and stands up to me when he needs to. Anyway, so that's the guy story, the guy part of the story. And we got married within a year. Why am I having to think about this? But I am. We got married within a year and moved to Arizona. And 4 or 5 months afterwards, found out that we were going to have a baby. Was not expecting that. It was a very big surprise. And that kind of got me thinking and got me very nervous about parenthood. Very, very nervous about parenthood, because I didn't feel, going back to that, did not feel equipped, did not feel prepared for that stage in life, because I was realizing that I was a very broken person and had a lot of issues. And when my son came around, when I held him for the first time, just a lot of things really overwhelmed me, but my feeling of what I wanted for him as an individual kind of came into alignment. Me just looking at this little baby going, you know what? I want so much more for you than what I was given. I don't want you to be afraid of me ever. I don't want you to be afraid of me ever. I don't want you to be afraid of the world, ever. I want you to approach this world from a place of worthiness and belonging. I know I totally sound like Brene Brown right now, but that's such a good indicator of what I was brought up as a kid. And that's what I was placed in the world as. I wasn't taught that I was worthy or that I belonged. And that's how I approached the world. And with my son, and my daughter, you matter in this world because you're a human, period, end of paragraph, end of subject, end of book. You're a human. That's why you matter. And that's why you belong in this world. And that's why you deserve to take up space. And it kind of wrecked me giving birth in a sense, because it showed me how broken I was. And how many areas needed healing in my life before I could start to think about conducting this little one's life and helping this little one grow up, to be an adult and to function in the world. So I started reading books and books and books and books about psychological help, dealing with my anger, and probably when Trent was about 3 or 4, I started going to therapy. And that's been a continuous thing ever since. And going to therapy was deeply scary to me because I felt like I was going to be found out a little bit, exposed a little bit.
What type of therapy were you doing? Was it traditional talk, cognitive, behavioral?
So the first kind of therapy was just kind of me talking to somebody, and then it went into cognitive behavioral therapy, and then it went into PTSD therapy, and it just kind of branched on from there out. But it made me realize that the walls that I had put up, they served a purpose when I was little and needed to survive. But the older I got, there wasn't the need for those anymore.
I love that. Love that.
Yeah. So, and I didn't realize how deeply those walls infiltrated my life. Like, I remember even going to therapy and then going back and going, was I even serious when I got married? Because I remember getting married and saying my wedding vows and just being like, you're never going to get to me, dude. I love you as much as I can love you, but you're never going to get to the real me. You're never going to understand the real me. And if I don't choose to take down those walls, you're not coming near me. And it wasn't until going through therapy that it was like, and it was kind of like, my gosh, was I really that hardened and that bitter? And the answer is yes, I was. But I have a lot more self-compassion with myself now because I realized that the reason that I did that was for self-preservation back then. And it's easier to let go of those walls and everything, when you realize that it served a purpose, but now you can let it go and move on to the next thing. Therapy was the hardest thing I ever did. It wrecked me. But it was the best thing I ever did. So much so that I'm very much an advocate of going to therapy, finding a good therapist. And that's pretty much something that I will never shut up about. You deserve therapy. You deserve therapy. People are worthy of therapy because they are worthy of living a life that has freedom involved in it.
So I have a question. That 2-week period of your life where you almost ended it all, what saved you? Because you didn't start therapy at that time.
No.
What do you think it is, or what do you think saved you?
In a way, I think I started looking at myself, and I was the way that we were brought up very much to look at other people, make other people happy, serve other people, and not look at yourself. And I think for the first time, I started looking at myself as somebody who held a slight possibility of a person that had the ability to change their own destiny, and a person that, and that's not a spiritual answer, but there is a spiritual answer within that, because I mean, God's the one that gives you that kind of strength to pull yourself up. But realizing within myself that I had that strength, and that I could overcome, that period. Another thing that I did at that point in time as well was get on medication for anxiety. And
then God seemed to work a little bit better.
Funny about that, huh? God and chemicals. God and chemicals. And that's kind of what started realigning things. Yeah. So, and then I started getting more into therapy when we moved back to Austin. Deeper into therapy, kind of like on a weekly basis, and just discovering myself and discovering the kind of person that I am. And it's been everything. It's been everything to understand who I am as a person, who I wasn't allowed to be when I was a kid. Finding that out, and then being able to embrace who you are as a person and conduct yourself as a more complete person. It's important, but it's also very cool to come out on the other side of healing. And I still have days where I go back to reacting out of fear and reacting out of depression or anxiety, or out of a person who's had a traumatic background. But I still, through therapy and everything, I still have skills that have made me able to move on and move forward. I have a daughter now that makes me kind of embrace more of my feistiness as an individual. Because that little girl watches me, and she's already pretty feisty as an individual. But I love the way she interacts with the world. And I know that that's because of my work as an individual. And that's her living her best life, and her living her fulfilled life, and her being who she is a big factor because of the work that I've done. And that's really cool. That's really cool to see. Yeah. So that's my story. Any questions?
From your childhood, what is something like positive that you take away from it? Maybe it was negative, but now it's positive.
My love of learning, for sure. I have a lot of creative endeavors that I choose to do. Things that mean a lot to me. And I do that because I have that curiosity and that drive. And I think that started, way back when I was doing it to survive. And now I do it, because I love it. And because that's just who I am.
What is the one thing you would say to that person still trapped in that feeling of a little girl in a closet with a flashlight looking at the book? What would you say to those grown women that still feel trapped by their upbringing? What would you say to them, Rachel?
That there is hope, and that they are their own hope. And even though it feels like it feels hopeless, they are stronger. They are much stronger than they believe, and they hold the answer to their positive destiny and positive future. And they are the reason that I'm telling this story, is because, you know, driving up here thinking about why I'm talking about what I'm talking about is because of what you said. Maybe there's somebody that's in a closet too, hiding from their parents, scared and doesn't know how to interact with the world. And just, that's the reason I'm doing this, is to help other people and bring awareness. And something else I would say is to reach out for help, because you're not crazy. It's real.
Yeah.
And to reach out for help, because there are people in this world who genuinely do want to help, and want to help you live a more productive life. Thank God for therapists. I couldn't be a therapist.
Yes, you could.
I
I
No.
actually disagree with that.
I mean, I love the idea of therapy. But I couldn't do it, because when I went to therapy, there was so much brokenness there, and there was such an eagerness to change, and not everybody has that when they go into therapy. But yeah, thank God for therapists, because yeah, they've changed so much in my life for the better.
No, you would be a really good psychotherapist because the advice you give, and like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just so simple, but it makes sense, and it helps you, and it's intuitive. Like, I don't know. I definitely think you could be. I've always told you that.
Well, I've been in it long enough, that's for sure.
You learned all the tricks.
Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing with us your story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
I love you guys, and I'm glad we're on this journey together.
Yeah.
Be sure to listen to the next episode. Our baby sister, Ashley, will be...
I believe it's Aaron's next.
Yeah.
Oh, Aaron.
Yeah.
Sorry, Aaron's story will be next. But
And
until
after
then,
that, Ashley's.
Until then, guys, thank you so much for hanging with us. We love you, and reach out to us if you need any help. We can point you in the right resources and give you valuable things, tools that you can use. We love you guys.